appreciate the return to regular order, as I did have some issues that I wanted to be able to address. I don't doubt that this legislation has been introduced in good faith by individuals who are supporting it, both sides of the aisle, although it does seem to be beat up on New York Day, and so I thought it would be very important to actually clear up some of the factual inaccuracies that I think were presented, not in bad faith, of course. Now, Mr. Porter, would you agree that federalism is an important part of the constitutional construct that we have in this great republic of ours?
Certainly.
And as part of the premise of federalism is that each individual state has the capacity to determine for itself the best form of taxation for that particular jurisdiction, correct?
Certainly within limits, yes.
And so isn't it reasonable to conclude that the legislation that is before us is inconsistent with the notions of federalism often put forth by people here in the country and certainly the Congress who talk a lot about individual states' rights?
Well, I think in this particular case, as we talked about a little bit earlier, there have been movements to try to get the states as individual states to enact some type of legislation that would help in this particular issue. But that, I think, as we said here earlier, that hasn't happened. So the only way to get some type of uniformity would be for the federal government to provide that uniformity.
Now, do you think what New York City and New York State have done is fundamentally unfair in terms of the taxation system that they've put forth?
I can't speak that much about the state of New York or the city of New York because I'm not there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I think it's clear, and I believe it was Mr. Carter who testified that New York State would lose about $100 to $120 million. Is that correct?
That is correct with the legislation is currently drafted.
Okay. Now let me go back to Mr. Porter. Picking up on a theme that was raised earlier, now tax revenue pays in part for police protection, correct?
Yes.
And when non-residents are temporarily in New York, they benefit from that police protection, true?
Correct.
And isn't it the case that New York City, as a center of commerce for the country, if not the world, is uniquely positioned in that it draws people from all over the country, from different regions, in fact, from different parts of the world, to work in New York City at a disproportionately higher rate than may exist in other parts of the country. Is that a fair characterization?
Are you stating that wages in New York City are going to be higher than wages in other parts of the country?
People temporarily find themselves deployed for work reasons in New York City in numbers greater than in probably any other part of the country because New York City is a center of commerce. Is that a fair characterization?
I would agree with that, yes.
So there's a higher burden that's placed on New York City in terms of police protection than in any other part of the country because of the high number of workers temporarily residing there. Is that fair to say?
I think that's true, and I would agree with that. But I think also, as was mentioned earlier, when I'm in New York City, I'm paying taxes when I fly in. I'm paying airport taxes. I'm paying hotel taxes. I'm paying food taxes. That as a guy from West Virginia would think they're higher than what I would be paid in West Virginia. So I understand. In my theory, I'm paying.
Let me reclaim my time. I do appreciate that, but my time is limited. And the same would apply for fire safety protection, correct? That it would benefit non-residents temporarily working there. True?
True.
Same would apply to sanitation services, correct?
Correct.
Same would apply to the extensive New York City mass transportation system, correct?
Correct.
Now, in terms of this general overall point, and this has really bothered me since my time here in Congress, and I only have a little bit of a moment to express it. You've got states like New York, California, Illinois, Connecticut, that regularly send, in some instances, tens of billions of dollars more to the federal government than we get back in return. And in the most recent study that I've seen, New York State sent $23 billion more to the federal government than we get back in return. Is that fair, sir?
I guess that would depend upon your characterization. I mean, again, I think you're talking about federal revenues,
Right.
correct? As opposed to the state issues, which is what we're...
And I'm
trying to
talking
address.
about federal revenues that then get dispersed to other states. And let me just note for the record that 2 of those states that actually receive more money from the federal government than we get back in return are Georgia, which receives almost $4 billion more in revenue than they send here to Washington, D.C., and Alabama, which is 47th on the list in terms of a negative disparity, positive for the great state of Alabama, which receives
Yeah, you're beginning to run over your time.
$17 billion more, and I appreciate the chair's indulgence, $17 billion more than they get back in return. And so all I'm saying is that if we want to confront unfairness, let's deal with unfairness broadly defined. We're happy in New York State to support states like Georgia and Alabama, and these are 2 very good men, 2 very good representatives. But to make the situation worse for a donor state like New York, in my view, is fundamentally unfair, and I yield back.